You're watching NFL Daily. Today's show is presented by Manscaped. You can save 20% off and get free shipping on your next purchase when you go to manscaped.com and use the promo code CHAT at checkout. We'll tell you more about Manscaped coming up later on in today's show. We are talking about the biggest winners and losers from NFL free agency so far. We'll go over the full list of teams and players and give you a complete breakdown here on today's show. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Begin with the winners list. We start with the Chicago Bears. And Chicago Bears already in position to have their next quarterback with Caleb Williams. But what's that team going to look like around Caleb Williams? Well, we get some answers this week, and it seems like the Chicago Bears are in good shape. Jalen Johnson, if you recall, back at the trade deadline, wanted out of Chicago. Now they have one of the best corners in football locked up on a 4-year deal. DeAndre Swift at the running back position, they bring in on a 3-year, $24 million deal with 15.3 guaranteed. So you get some nice help there in the run game. Kevin Byard, not a bad signing either. You get a backup quarterback in Brett Rippon, who has played in Shane Waldron's offense previously. And then you had a couple trades that were really good for the Chicago Bears as well, as they got help on the offensive line with Ryan Bates. And of course, the biggest trade of all that the Chicago Bears were able to pull off was the Keenan Allen deal, which for them to get some massive help in the receiver room was a big deal. All they had to do was give up a 4th-round pick for one of the better receivers in football, a 6-time Pro Bowler in Keenan Allen. So the Bears taking huge steps in the right direction this offseason. Now we'll see what they do when it comes to the draft, but I really like what I saw from Chicago so far to this point. Next on the winners list, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles right away made a splash when they brought in Saquon Barkley from the New York Giants to help out in the run game, but also made a division rival weaker by taking away the New York Giants' best player in Saquon Barkley as well. You bring in guys like Bryce Huff as well, 3 years, $51 million for him, $34 million guaranteed. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I really like the idea of bringing him back into the fold in Philadelphia. He gets 3 years, $27 million. I mean, even a guy like Devin White they were able to add to this team. 1 year, $7.5 million. An Eagles team that, think about this, you lose Jason Kelce, your future first-ballot Hall of Famer. You lose Fletcher Cox to retirement, a team that had something to prove after having just an abysmal finish to 2023. They made a statement, even a trade for Kenny Pickett to be their backup quarterback. Nobody has prioritized the backup quarterback position like the Philadelphia Eagles have, and they've been rewarded for it. Ian Rappaport, the NFL Network, tweeting out about Josh Sweat. Eagles pass rusher Josh Sweat is staying in Philly. Sources tell me, and Tom Pelissero, he's agreed to terms on a restructured contract despite interest elsewhere for what likely would have been a pay increase. Philly keeps a good one home. Meanwhile, as far as the trade goes that they made with the Pittsburgh Steelers to bring in Kenny Pickett, they acquired a 4th-round pick, gave up a 3rd and 2 7th-round picks. So not bad trade compensation to give up for Philadelphia for a former first-round pick from just 2 years ago. Howie Roseman making moves, and the Eagles in good shape once again. Our pinned comment today, who are the biggest winners from NFL free agency so far? We've named a couple. We got more to get to here in just a moment. Want to hear from you guys. Weigh in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Next on our list is the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can't talk about free agency winners without beginning with Pittsburgh. They started off this thing with a bang, bringing in Russell Wilson from the Denver Broncos. Say what you want about Russ. Maybe you don't think he's the right fit in Pittsburgh, but what you can't deny is that this makes a ton of financial sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, getting Russell Wilson on a league minimum deal of 1 year, $1.2 million. And then they got help in their defense with Patrick Queen coming over from the arch-rival Baltimore Ravens, 3 years, $41 million. A brilliant move on the part of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Got him below his expected market value as well. They bring over Deshaun Elliott on a pretty reasonable contract as well, 2 years, $6 million on that front. I like what I've seen from the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last couple days from Mike Tomlin and company there. Watch out for the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off a 10-win season in 2023. The Washington Commanders, we knew going into this offseason they had a ton of cap space to spend. New head coach Dan Quinn coming in. How would the Washington Commanders go about this offseason? They were some of the biggest spenders out there. They started with some familiar names, the likes of Zach Ertz coming over on a one-year, $5 million deal at the tight end position. Dorrance Armstrong, who played under Dan Quinn with the Dallas Cowboys, the former Jayhawk, signs a 3-year, $33 million deal with $22 million guaranteed. Also got some help at the linebacker position. Then you get a former Pro Bowl running back in Austin Eckler as well. 2 years, $8.43 million. Reasonable deal there. Nick Allegretti, who saved the Super Bowl for the Chiefs on the offensive line, they bring him in. You get a backup quarterback in Marcus Mariota. You get a guy like Jeremy Chin, a starting caliber safety for a cheap deal. And then how about a future first ballot Hall of Famer in Bobby Wagner? Reunited with Dan Quinn, 1 year up to $8.5 million, and Jamison Crowder, of course, found his way back to Washington as well. I really like what the Washington Commanders are doing here, taking some big steps in the right direction, and we'll see what they do with their quarterback position come to the draft, with the expectation of either Jaden Daniels or Drake May being the next quarterback for Washington. Got to mention the Atlanta Falcons here. The Falcons, one of the biggest winners, I think, when it comes to free agency. Started off with making the biggest signing of anyone out there, adding Kirk Cousins from the Minnesota Vikings to be their starting quarterback. You go from one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league with the combination thereof with Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke to a top 10 QB in Kirk Cousins on a 4-year, $180 million deal. Really like that. They already, of course, have Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson. Now you add Darnell Mooney to the equation. You get Ray McLeod involved, but it doesn't stop there for the Atlanta Falcons. They also were able to pull off a great deal to bring in more from the Arizona Cardinals to be the number 3 receiver. So I like what the Falcons are doing. I think that when you look at what they did with now how that receiver room stacks up with London, with Mooney, and with Rondell Moore, this, to me, I think the Falcons not only are going to be the favorites in the NFC South, I think you got to talk about them as a realistic contender in their in the NFC as well, as in the upper echelon, if you will. Loser list, the Dallas Cowboys. We heard Jerry Jones say going into the offseason that the Dallas Cowboys were all in, right, on this season and trying to get things on track. But apparently all in did not apply to free agency. Now, typically the Cowboys are not big spenders when it comes to free agency, but in a year where they're all in, it didn't look like it. Their only major signing was Eric Kendricks, who some people believe doesn't have much left in the tank anyway. You lose Tony Pollard. You lose Dorrance Armstrong. Some big question marks. How good are the Dallas Cowboys going to be for a team that lost to the wild card round last year? A missed opportunity potentially for the Dallas Cowboys. Top of the morning to you. This episode is brought to you by the St. Patrick's Day Shamrock Shavers Manscaped. This year, don't just chase rainbows. Make your own pot of gold and groom your little leprechaun with the leaders in below-the-kilt care. Say goodbye to your clover forest with Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0 and let your confidence shine bright. Embrace the luck of the Irish and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Head over to manscaped.com and use code CHAT for 20% off and free shipping. Meet your new lucky charm for St. Patrick's Day, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. The trimmer comes with 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, one for a classic trim and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. Trimming the hedges in your Irish garden isn't just for below the belt. Complete your look with Manscaped's signature Beard Hedger Pro Kit plus Handyman Electric Face Shaver. Whether you're sculpting your beard or cleaning up your neckline, these are always the right tools for the job. Get 20% off and free shipping with code CHAT at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with code CHAT at manscaped.com. this St. Patrick's Day, make sure your little hairy leprechaun is luckier than ever with Manscaped. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. Next on the list, we find the Denver Broncos. And this one was going to be obvious, right? With all that money they're having to pay to Russell Wilson over the next 2 seasons. But from there, with that money that he's dealt, that really limited what the Denver Broncos could do, as they were lacking money, and it's clear that this team isn't going to do anything, isn't going to be a threat at all in 2024. You bring in Brandon Jones, 3-year, $20 million deal. Malcolm Roach reunites with Sean Payton, but that's really just kind of it for the Denver Broncos at this point. Certainly a team that's going to be towards the bottom of the league in 2024. Carolina Panthers also on this list as well. Bryce Young going to be in his 2nd season in the National Football League. He's got a new head coach in Dave Canales coming over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where he was their offensive coordinator. But you look at Carolina here, and this team just isn't doing enough to invest in the right places to surround talent around Bryce Young. If you're a Carolina Panther fan, I don't know how you can sit here today and be excited like, oh, we got Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis, and A'Shawn Robinson. How about some skill position players around Bryce Young? How about investing there? They didn't really do that, this Carolina Panthers team did. And then not to mention they lost their best player in their defense. If you recall 2 years ago, the LA Rams offered the Panthers not 1, but 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns, and the Panthers turned it down. Now they settle for a 2nd and a 5th-round pick swap for Brian Burns. Granted, the Giants are going to, pay Brian Burns and everything, but still, nonetheless, you talk about a missed opportunity. You move on from him, and what did you really get out of him? Just incompetent management on the part of the Carolina Panthers, as has been part of the course over the last couple of seasons. Who won the trade for Brian Burns? Was it the New York Giants or was it the Carolina Panthers? I think this one's pretty obvious. I'm typing in NYG for the Giants. Type NYG for the Giants, CAR for Carolina. Let us know what you think in the comments section below. Next on the list, the Buffalo Bills. They say nobody circles the wagon like the Buffalo Bills, but feels like everybody's circling the wagon around the Buffalo Bills right now, as this team looks significantly worse than they were last year. The trend for the Buffalo Bills has been getting eliminated early in the playoffs in the divisional round over the last few seasons, right? And we knew that with the way that their free agent contracts worked in the salary cap, that the Bills were going to lose a lot. But it may have been even worse than what we thought, folks. You do take care of Taylor Rapp. You get him on a 3-year, $10 million deal. But so many pieces got left behind from the likes of Jordan Poyer to a number of other players. Still waiting to see what happens with Stephon Diggs. But, the most marquee outside signing, a guy like Curtis Samuel here, does that really move the needle that much at all here? I'm looking at the Buffalo Bills, folks, and it was a roller coaster year for them, right? They finished off the year strong in the regular season last year. I have my doubts. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to miss the playoffs this upcoming season. I think Sean McDermott's ultimately going to be fired. I don't think management, though, is doing them any favors with how they've handled the offseason to this point. Last on the list, Justin Fields. I look at Justin Fields, and it seems like nobody wants him, right? The market we were talking about a couple weeks ago, the Bears were wanting a first-round pick for Fields, and nobody was willing to bite on that. And then you take it a step further, all indications are nobody even wants him to be a starting quarterback in this league. His value has continued to plummet here in the last few days. It's unfortunate for Justin Fields that this has worked out the way it has, that things have kind of fallen apart fast for him looking for a home at the time of this recording right now after just what's been a rough 3 seasons in Chicago so far, where he's never really been set up to succeed in the situation, the hand that he's been dealt there. Where will Justin Fields play next season? Get your predictions in the comments section. Let us know where you think he ultimately is going to end up or not. Give me a team of where you think he'll go. We are covering free agency like no one else is. We had 4 straight days of live shows here on NFL Daily. And we're not slowing down here as we bring you our weekly live shows on Tuesdays and Thursdays here on the channel. We'll be live again for the NFL Draft. And we're keeping you up to date with all the major moves across the National Football League. We are your offseason headquarters. Smash that sub button. Join the family. Stay up to date with what's happening across the National Football League. We got you covered. Let's go to another category. This is our jury still out category of the great unknown of sorts. The Vikings, you move on from Kirk Cousins. You lose your top 10 quarterback. But could it be a blessing in disguise potentially? I don't like that you have to take on that $25 million cap hit this year. But on the flip side, now you're in a position to go find that younger quarterback. Danielle Hunter, losing him was a big deal, but you still were able to get a nice piece like Jonathan Grenard, among other players like Blake Cashman with 3 years, $25 million. And we've seen the Vikings have success with journeyman-type quarterbacks in the past, like the Case Keenums of the world. Is that what Sam Darnold is going to be? And you did get Aaron Donald away from the Green Bay Packers, or Aaron Jones, rather. Thank you. Harrison Smith, you did bring back on a team-friendly deal, so you get the good with the bad. It's kind of too early to tell with the Minnesota Vikings if they're headed in the right direction or not at this point. The Las Vegas Raiders, man, this is a team that it's so interesting to me. It's like they're trying to build a basketball team here instead of a football team. You got some more key players, right? You got Devontae Adams. Now you bring in Christian Wilkins. Of course, you already have Max Crosby as well. If this were a basketball team, I could run with those three and then just find some bench and role players and go with that. Problem is, you get 22 guys on offense and defense, and the Raiders just have some holes all over the place. Is Gardner Minshew really going to be their starting quarterback? No offense to Gardner Minshew, but he's meant to be a backup quarterback. The Raiders, I love bringing in Wilkins, but I just don't know how everything else is going to shape out at this point here. There's too many questions. You did a good job there, but you got more work to do as far as I'm concerned. The Los Angeles Chargers, the final team on our list. Chargers were in salary cap hell to begin this offseason, and they kind of salvaged things to an extent. Bringing in a decent tight end like Will Dissly and a good running back like Gus Edwards. You reworked Khalil Mack's deal, coming off one of the best seasons of his career where he had 17 sacks this past year. You reworked the deal with Joey Bosa as well, and brought those guys, their cap numbers down. You bring in a decent defensive player like Poona Ford, and Hayden Hurst comes in that tight end room. And I think that with these tight end positions, that Jim Harbaugh, as we've seen with him and Greg Roman in their offensive systems previously, really do a good job of embracing that tight end position. So with that said, we'll see what the Chargers do. Still more work to be done for the Los Angeles Chargers, but a great unknown exactly what they're going to look like here in 2024. If you made it to the end of today's video, 18 minutes in, you're definitely a real one. Spam in the comment section, show up and show out, and we thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time here on NFL Daily.